On this episode of Star Trek Universe, Effie and I watch a courtroom drama turned clip show as we review Star Trek The Menagerie Parts 1 and 2, right after these words from someone who may or may not eventually become the company responsible for selling those awful beeping Pike chairs. Welcome into Star Trek Universe. We are continuing our journey through classic Star Trek. I am your guide, David C. Roberson. I know these forests well. Our effulgent Effie Ophelders has nary the experience with this land, but is becoming familiar with its blasphemous tricks. How are you, Effie?
I'm good. I slept in, sort of, because I slept until 8 a.m., which is apparently sleeping in for me at this point.
Damn you.
But no, I'm doing, yeah, God. I figured I would only be able to respond with yes or no throughout this episode, but that would probably cut it short quite a bit. So
Yeah.
I'll refrain from beeping.
Right, please don't.
You're making it very tempting right now.
Still, like, you know what? This episode is like the genesis of one of my, or at least the genesis of at least one of the ongoing jokes in one of my favorite, if not favorite, episode of Futurama, where no fan has gone before, where they're asking, or Fry is in the Pike chair, and they're like, one beep for yes, two beeps for no, and they ask him if he's guilty, and he goes, dude, and Zap Brannigan goes, two beeps, double yes.
Yes, I remember that one. It's just a good joke. It never gets old.
All right, so yeah, we're talking about the one and only two-parter in the original Star Trek series. It would be the only two-part episode in Star Trek for 25 years.
Jesus.
Yeah, so
Well, we've hit it. We're there. This is the peak, I guess. Yeah. No, it makes sense that they wouldn't do it again if this was mostly let's turn our pilot into 2 episodes, which is fair. I get that because I really liked the pilot, and I was like, if you're gonna have to recoup the costs and want people to see the results anyway, like this was a fine way to do it.
Yeah.
Admittedly, I did skip through a bunch of it because I was like, this tension doesn't work for me knowing what is going to happen already, so...
Uh-huh.
But if you've never seen the pilot, I'd imagine this would be just as enjoyable with an added layer of Spock taking over everything.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, I do want to mention, despite my flippancy towards the beginning of the show, about it being a clip show.
Yeah. You mentioned that last week.
Yeah. It did make sense. This is actually a pretty good use of a clip show. I mean, it was a great cost-saving and time-saving technique because they had run out of scripts about halfway through the season. They weren't, they were struggling. And, dude, they already had the courtroom cases, like the sets. The courtroom sets, the Starbase 11 sets. They had the freaking bell, the court-martial.
Yeah.
They had all
They'd
of this
established
stuff.
the ritual.
And they had, as we said, the cage itself, which was not shown in its entirety until October of 1988 on television.
Yeah, that's a while.
So, like, it's not like people were tuning in 1967 and going, shit. This is a clip show already? It's season 1, for God's sake.
This is a recap? No, they wouldn't have known. And that would make it a whole lot more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Plus, they already had the dress uniforms. I mean, they had everything. They pretty much.
It was just
everything.
lying there, and they put it together in one story. Yeah.
The Memory Alpha summaries for part 1. Spock fakes a message from the Enterprise's former commander, Christopher Pike, steals the vessel, and sets it on a locked course for the forbidden planet, Talos 4. And the summary for part 2. While Spock faces court-martial for kidnapping Captain Pike and hijacking the Enterprise, he further explains his actions with mysterious footage about Pike's captivity by the Talosians. By the way, one of the things I love about this episode is how, like, they actually came up with a reason that they could see all this stuff, like, is filmed.
Yeah.
And like,
I was impressed.
I feel like Kirk is like precursor to the shitty entitled fanboy who's like, this doesn't make sense. We don't have recorders like that on the Enterprise.
Yeah, it's there's so many angles. Why is the camera work so good? Yeah, there's just trust me on this one. just go with it.
Yeah. Like, Captain Pike, is this how things went down? Beep. Cool. Which I read as, yep.
Truthful. Yeah. Oh, lordy lord. I was because the puppet, like, I was at first like, oh, come on, is this supposed to be the same actor? Because it's hard to recognize him. Mm-hmm. I feel like even if they didn't change the hair color so much, it would have been just easier to accept that this is Molten Face Pike. But it took me a bit of getting used to. Yeah,
he's not the same actor.
No. But I wasn't sure there was an actor in that puppet. Like,
no,
there's a mask.
There is, actually, and I think you've already seen him because he plays another crew member, but like he's like at the helm. But when I watch that episode, I always have to do a double take and go, "Is that Pike?" Because he looks almost just like Jeffrey Hunter. Right.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't look up the actor, but I like I said, I wasn't sure there was one. I just it could literally have been a head on a stick for all I knew. Yeah. Because there's not much acting to do in this role. Right. They're sitting, and there's a light that probably functions independently of whatever the fuck you do.
I don't know. There's probably a switch inside that like he flips when he means no.
Yeah, that would probably be easier than a remote, but still, you don't know. Well, it could just be someone on set.
They made his hair white, and then it was too bright for the light, so they actually had to put a bunch of powder on it to make it dull.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I was definitely like, oh, this is a very bright haircut especially because you get all this footage of the actual actor, and it's like it wasn't that blonde. Space radiation, I guess.
Well, delta rays, and also
exactly.
It's been 13 years.
Yeah, but like, it's not white hair. It felt blonde to me. It was too yellowish to come across to me like, oh, he's old. Oh, no, that didn't register to me.
It never looked.
But that might just be the remastering.
I don't know.
Bullshit.
It never looked blonde to me in any instance. It just looked like just stark gray, light gray to me. Right. Like, I've seen some shit, man. I can't talk about it.
I've seen some shit in terms of hair dye, and like, I've bleached my hair that color before, so.
Yeah, would it be funny if that wasn't Pike's hair color at all? Like, that was his one bit of self-expression, is having them dye it.
Oh, that would have been, delightful. Just 5 years after the cage, it would have just been, yeah, you know what? I feel like bleaching it. Let's just bleach it. We're not going to go for a fancy color. No. I'm going to be a blonde.
Which, here's something that's funny. Anson Mount plays Pike in the show, in Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And his hair color was pretty much just what Jeffrey Hunter had in the cage. And as they're in Strange New Worlds now, like, he's getting more and more gray, and they're letting it show, and it looks like the dude who's in the original series.
That's so smart. I love that. That is good shit. You'll have to send me pictures, because I truly haven't seen anything of those shows, so I legit don't know what the actor looks like or the main characters at all. So now I'm curious. But that is lovely attention to detail. Just like bridge that gap slowly. Make us believe it.
I mean, yeah. I am pleased with some of the attention to detail, like, and then other things I'm just kind of like, well, that's fine. Like, the basic idea of just going like, oh, hey, well, we just need to change the timeline. It makes sense, and I'm okay with it, and I enjoy the fact that how they've chosen to do that fixes, any possible problem ever with continuity. But at the same time,
which is a delightful thing in and of itself. It's a cop-out, but it's also fun.
It's a cop-out, but it's also like, I like my old things.
And you're allowed to like your old things.
I like my toggle switches and my sexism.
I want the 60s fucking chauvinist. Yeah, no, okay. Oh.
So
that's not bad, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Sorry, you just send me the
yeah.
picture. That's fun.
Yeah, I just sent Effie the picture or a picture from Discovery season 2.
That's a young one. Yeah, yeah. You could see him grow up into old Pike, yeah.
And then current Strange New Worlds.
He does look aged. That is great. Oh, yeah. Oh, and I do appreciate that sort of fun where they're not afraid to. You've mentioned this before, where there was a character just like introduced in a show knowing full well they're gonna die in an off-screen thing in an earlier episode that takes place in the future. I love that they're not afraid to do that.
Yeah,
because it is very much like you're watching that show and you're like, yo, we know where he ends up, like back on Talos 4 in a chair.
Yeah, well, I mean,
he won't know there's a chair anymore, but
right. Well, Pike doesn't know that he will be going to Talos 4 in Discovery and Strange New Worlds, but he very much knows that he is going to wind up in that chair because of freaking time crystals or something. And he sees his future. So, like, one of the brilliant things about that show is we know his future, and so does he. And he's like,
that is dark.
Yeah, and that's one of
that'll fuck you up.
That's one of his like character arcs, is trying to come to terms with how he must become and what must happen, and making that choice to save those children again.
Yeah. Oh, that's delightful.
Mm-hmm.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Because it is the right thing to do, yada, yada, yada. But he also is still in shock in this episode. And that, like, you're not breaking any continuity by making him know where this will end up.
Right.
If anything, it makes it more seamless when he does say, do you want to go there? Beep. Because up until then, you're like, does he not want this? Or does he not want Spock to take the fall?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, it seems like the latter, where it is like, yeah, I don't want you to get ruined for my sake.
Yeah.
Which in and of itself, I'm sure the Spock Kirk shippers will have a field day just of, well, he falls in love with every captain apparently, because God, does he have a boner for Pike? But that might just be my brain.
Yeah. No, I've always taken it just friendship and loyalty, but
yeah, no, of course, and but like fierce loyalty, because yeah, he breaks basically every rule, and that's delightful. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of trickery until there's just like, yeah, you can't stop me anyway, so just hear me out.
Yeah. So one of the things, and by the way, I'm sorry, I hate to like, I'm sure there's somebody out there going like, don't tell Effie about spoilers from the future, but that's the kind of spoiler that like would make me really excited to continue on.
Oh, absolutely. I agree, especially about the spoiler I've already heard. And also, let's be real, by the time we get to like 6 shows ahead, I'll be like, oh, right, you told me that once. Because I'll have hours and hours of other shit in between that will take up my brain space. So by then you'll probably be like, remember the pilot? There was a reference in this episode. And I'm like, God damn it.
Maybe.
I vaguely recall.
So one of the things I love about like the surrounding story, not the clip show part of it, but just like, we get more world building. We find out how long he served with Pike, for over 11 years.
Yeah.
Which we can kind of guesstimate how long he's served under Kirk. And it has been years. He and Kirk and McCoy have known each other for years.
Which is good to have established.
It's good to have established, but it also leaves a lot unsaid for all the years that Spock served with Pike, for all the years that he served with Kirk and McCoy, or like there's a lot of place for like extended universe to go. There's a lot of place for current Star Trek to explore. I also love that Spock is willing to risk his career and his life out of loyalty to a former captain, because it hints at a friendship and shows respect and care that is perhaps an unintentional foreshadowing of Kirk and the Enterprise crew making similar sacrifices in a later adventure that you currently know nothing about, but that I assume most everyone listening to this probably
will
does.
Immediately understand. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to that, because I do feel that is a setup of like, oh no, this is true Spock in the sense of how incredibly far he'll go just to do the right thing, to help his friends, to make sure somebody doesn't end up sitting in a chair and staring out the window for the rest of his life. Just out of pure respect and like, I've served with you for years and you deserve better. So yeah, I'm sure he'll go rogue once more. He can never learn to break the rules too many times, I guess.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, this is quite reversed in the future, where it's everyone else risking everything for him, for Spock.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
We all love Spock. Who doesn't?
As far as I know, everyone loves Spock.
Yeah, I've no clue. If you're watching Star Trek and you're like, you know, the demonic elf ear person, screw him. Like, everyone else, great. Like, what are you doing? How would he not be? He's almost more of a face of the franchise than Kirk could ever be, just because his exterior is different.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And have I ever told you I met this great cosplayer at a con over here, who I think was taking pictures for money for charity, which was just a delightful thing in and of itself. But it was this really tall, skinny guy. Like, looked otherworldly, the perfect face, just looked so much like Spock, even to me, as, you know, being, it was delightful. I don't think I took that picture because I didn't have cash. I didn't give to charity that day, I guess. But he was delightful, just clearly a bit older, but such a great build and face for it. And just, to me, having not seen a whole lot at that point, I was like, you could have just walked off that starship and I would believe it. Like, this looks so good, and it's such a simple cosplay. But if you have that look going for you, that's just brilliant. That was truly one of the most impressive cosplays that I've ever seen in real life, despite it not being the most complicated. Oh, I sewed this by hand for 18 years. It's just. You're just born to play this person at a con. That is sometimes just all you need to do.
Yeah. There was a guy who went around for years who looked so much like William Shatner. People would come up to him and try to get autographs. And he was wearing like the Star Trek movie tunic and everything, like the Admiral's uniform and everything. Yeah. And people thought it was him. And then... Oh, great. But then there was like
forgetting that he would probably never do it if it was Shatner, because why would you walk around in that costume? But, you know.
But the other part of it is like there was like a huge sect of people who really actually came to know who that guy was. Yeah, and then still wanted his autograph and wanted pictures with him.
Of course. That's just great. Oh, love that.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm focusing very heavily on the courtroom stuff, the stuff that happened outside of the cage.
Agreed. That's also, like I said, the stuff I actually watched, because there are so many bits where I was like, yeah, I know where this goes. Can I get to the next commercial where they have to round it off and take us back to reality and then start up again in the next scene for some reason? Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to know what our thoughts were on the cage, other than what we've said here, we did a whole episode about the cage. So we've already talked about it. Yeah.
It's the first thing we ever did. So, well, not the first thing we ever recorded, but for this show. Yeah. Yeah. We had never met.
So I hate to keep kind of pushing into other series a little bit, but
they made an entire series about Pike, so, can't help it.
Well, this one isn't about Pike. This one's... One of the things I love about this is that, like, even more than Court Martial, like, this episode drives home that Starfleet has secrets. Yeah. Talos 4 is so freaking classified.
There is a dossier, yeah.
If you make communications with the planet or go there, you're given the death penalty. It's the only... dark. That's the only time that that's the last instance of that penalty being on the books. But it's also easy to understand
for good
why.
reason, because it makes sense to an extent. Like, we don't want communications with that after we've read the report by Pike, but also receiving a transmission from there means death. Like, oh, your utopia is on thin ice if death penalty at all is a thing. Mm-hmm. But that might be my European politics seeping into the U.S. utopian imagination. But
no, I think that tracks, and I think that's what they intended. That's why they were like, it's the only thing that the death penalty is still inactive.
Yeah.
There's still
which feels weird. Mm-hmm. Like, if that's the one exception, like, I get that you want to write it in and also make sure it's not a standard thing, but that also sets the bar, like, this is the most dangerous thing we've encountered?
Yeah.
Or something?
Isn't it? I mean, you think about it.
Up to this point, but we have, like, years to go. So in my mind, I'm like, are you limiting yourself? By are we now going to encounter different planets where we're like, well, why is it legal still to communicate with this one?
Well, I don't, I think they're not saying, he didn't say, we'll never use the death penalty ever again. He's just saying, this is the only one we have. The death penalty is still for.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But it makes sense. If the Telosians are so freaking powerful, and I think they're more powerful than they even realized, because like, as powerful as they are at the end of Menagerie Part 2, where it turns out they reached out and concocted a fictional version of Mendez to go with Kirk on the shuttle ride, just to keep him preoccupied. By the way, if you're that powerful, why not just have him hook up with somebody? And nobody even on the starbase know that the Enterprise is gone.
I think that's just the proof we needed, that if they wanted more sex in the series, they could have.
Yeah.
It's not all horniness. It's mostly the clip show.
So second part,
I get that. Like, the range of their power seems to have extended quite a bit to include many light years. But
well, again, it's been what, 13 years. So that starbase may not have been there 13 years ago. That may have been.
That's also true. Yeah.
In fact, it would make sense if Starbase 11 was put there specifically to sort of like monitor people going to
we're
Talos
a buoy.
4.
Like, you can't go past here, please. This is the starbase. You can't go that way. Go that way. Yeah. That would make sense. But at the same time, we've encountered other incredibly powerful beings. Like, what were the beings in Charlie X again? Like the green floaty ones that are just like, we don't deal with those people usually.
Yeah, I don't remember their names.
Because there was also a rule for that, I feel like.
Phasians, I think?
Right, that probably. Someone will correct us. That's the good thing about being wrong on a Star Trek podcast. We'll get feedback.
Yeah, and also, it doesn't matter to me, like, how many times I've seen it. I'm not going to remember this shit. I'm just not.
No, of course. Like, there's too many different names, and let's be real, the writers just made up most of it on the spot, so we can also assume that it wasn't there is nothing yet to connect them. I mean,
there are instances in Next Generation where Patrick Stewart just says the wrong name, and no one corrects him. No one corrected him.
That's delightful.
Yeah, like, it was
that's good.
It was like a T name, and then he said another T name that they had in a previous episode, and just no one corrected him. No one caught it, and they just moved on with the shoot, man.
Fair enough. Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of T's. That's fair. Even already. No.
But no, what I was going to say earlier is, like, with their mind powers and their ability to make people not know what the hell is even real, that is serious enough, and there's enough of a threat to say, okay, well, threaten the death penalty then.
Yeah, but just make sure no one thinks about going there.
But, aside from back in Court Martial, where they wanted to sweep Kirk's apparent misdeeds under the rug for the sake of the service.
Yeah.
This is a much bigger indication that Starfleet is keeping a lot of shit hush-hush. Like, and it makes you wonder, like, what else are they keeping? Like, what are they holding back now from the general public?
Yeah.
And I would argue that and mind you, this is under Gene Roddenberry's care. Mm-hmm. I would argue that this is in fact, it establishes a precedent for certain unseemly organizations and entities within Starfleet in future series. I'm trying hard to be vague for your sake, but
I get it.
There are many fans who are like, the Utopia. Why would there be this secret ops bullshit?
No, this feels like a standard military organization that would have some fucking no-go zones, and that would likely, there's going to be factions.
Yeah, and these episodes were written by Gene Roddenberry, who himself was in the military. So there is
classified shit.
So Utopia notwithstanding, I think Gene also had a healthy dislike of bureaucracy.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Because
this also felt like a smaller courtroom. Let's put it. It's just, well, you're entitled to a jury of your peers. We happen to have 3 people in command, and that's technically enough. But also, it feels like a back room. It feels like, we just have the projector set up here, so let's do it here. Because there's no audience. There's not a lot of witnesses. It's like, it feels like more hush hush than the last one even. Yeah.
I don't know if there is a lot more to say about this episode, honestly. Like, I kind of feel like the second part is kind of a bummer, because to me it's like the Telosians were just like, we just screwed around to, make sure that Kirk didn't get his shit back quickly. And everything's kind of whisked away like, Mendez was never real. And I'm like, why? Why any of that?
He could have just been there, but sure. But more interestingly, it does on that topic, it does make it purely Kirk's choice, of course, to be okay with his friend doing this thing instead of having another commander in his neck, in a way.
But then we have that.
It feels like a shortcut, yeah.
It was a shortcut, as was Uhura just reporting in. Received images from Talos 4 in view of historic importance of Christopher Pike in space exploration. General Order 7 prohibiting contact. Talos 4 is suspended this occasion. No action contemplated against Spock. So clearly,
no action contemplated. Yeah,
clearly, everybody in Starfleet knows about the General Order 7. Everybody in Starfleet saw these images that were sure.
They noticed there were transmissions. That's illegal. They would have had to wave away a lot in terms of just bureaucracy shit. But I mostly what I wanted to say, the more interesting part, to me, they changed the ending because they cut out the part where fake, they reused the fake Pike going with her. And at the same time, within the clip show, there's also we won't survive without you because our planet is desolate. That whole plot point, they seem to have been doing fine for the past couple of years. So they're saved after all. So there's not the tinge of tragedy anymore because technically, Pike could now help-ish, maybe. He's in a chair in reality, so I'm not sure if they'll be useful for making crops and shit immediately, but they could have children in theory, that whole thing, they could repopulate now. So it has that sort of, it sort of undoes the, we'll always choose death over captivity thing unless we're disabled, because then we'll prefer captivity if it's cool with you.
Well, he did care for Vina.
Yeah.
He did care for Vina,
and that makes sense because she is a sympathetic character in the end, yeah. But I care for Vina.
I would think personally.
Also, he's way too old for her now, but she's technically still, also older. So yeah,
she's still
she's
old,
ancient,
really old.
Yeah, and but not on the screen. They're both very young on the dream sequence. Yeah.
Importantly, I don't. This is an interesting thought though. Is what do you choose? He would choose death over captivity, but which captivity would he prefer? The one where he is stuck inside of a husk of a body and has all the feelings and everything. Like, they really painted a picture of freaking hell. Like, I can't think of a worse existence. So if you came to me and said, okay, you're in a lifeless husk of a body and you can't do jack shit.
There's zero communication. Like, you'll die of isolation but that felt like the whole premise for this episode to work is this chair is the best we got.
Yeah.
You can beep. And I feel like, come on, in a couple centuries with the level of tech they have, that's the best we can do for disabled people. Like, you get hit with some delta rays and there's just nothing we can do. Maybe we can figure out a way to make you send a signal. Not a complicated signal. Just a yes or no two beeps. Like, come on.
Maybe the delta rays screw with, like, communication centers of the brain or something. But
I suppose, but even then, like at that point, if you're like we did get the idea he can still hear and process the things happening around him and, like, think, which makes it hell. Because if you don't have that, like, if your brain activity just goes down to the bare minimum, you don't have a lot of sadness and hurt either anymore. So that gets complicated. But just these are the best facilities we have for you.
Yeah.
That felt a tad like, oh, come on, we have better things for Stephen Hawking to communicate with the rest of the world. So
yeah.
And I know this one can't technically move his eyes either, but, like, there should have been some way to, if you're gonna make the brain waves go beep, you could probably make at least come up with a better system than just yes and no.
Yeah.
Like, there are like, if you introduce more beeps or just teach him Morse for all I care. Like, it will take a while, it will suck, but he could string words together. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, there are better systems imaginable than the yes-no beep.
I agree. But given the circumstances that we were presented in the episode, I would choose the captivity of getting to bang the hot chick while bulbheads watched me, rather than just, like, being trapped inside of my own useless body.
I agree with his with his choice.
Yeah.
I just feel like it really it changes the emotional impact at the end of the original pilot. So you have a different vibe coming out of it, as well as just my nitpicky point of being like, well, this utopia doesn't really give a shit about disabled people, does it? Because that's just me being a dick about it. But like, I just felt like making that point for a second. But yeah, it's just, it lands a little differently, and that's like pretty much the only difference I could tell in the clip show, where it was like, oh, you'll have everything you want and more. Now just sounds creepy because Pike isn't coming with her yet, so she's presumably been there for 11 years, just, you know, screwing around, doing her own thing.
Yeah, which would probably be Pike, you know, some illusion of Pike or something.
Oh yeah. Of course, sure, that would still work.
Yeah, just a bunch of gross Telosians, like, watching her flick the bean and shit, and now they're like, "Oh, we have a difference in pornography."
Yeah,
he's coming back. We're gonna get to see those balls throb and shrink.
Yeah, delightful. Now it was good to see the old, like, dual women cast again. Like, they did the exact same thing. It's Eclipse, but you know, it was fun. I forgot how much I liked that dynamic of just, oh yeah, there's the older one and the young one, and God, there's a bunch of tension here. It's fun.
Yes. What else? Well, shoot. Oh,
memorable lines.
I'll tell you. Yep. I'm going to memorable lines. That's exactly where I'm going. When McCoy was demanded on the Enterprise for an emergency, McCoy says probably somebody discovered a hangnail.
Yeah.
I love McCoy, man. He's probably my second favorite character on the show.
Oh, that's high praise. But yeah, he's witty. He doesn't let up. He's a fun actor. Yeah, to watch.
I mean, for me, it's like Spock number 1, McCoy 2, and then everybody else is sort of just floating around.
I get that. Yeah, that makes sense.
I love that.
I am still waiting for a yeoman replacement that will actually, be someone.
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
Yeah, I figured. We'll see in a couple shows.
I mean, I'm telling you, you don't have to wait. I'm telling you, you're good.
Okay.
We're just gonna cycle through, man. It's not a.
There's not a lot of women. Okay, well,
I didn't say that. There are lots of women.
Yeah. But they show up for an episode and make out and leave.
Yeah, well, they don't necessarily make out.
That feels like not always. Fair enough, but that feels like the pattern. We introduce a love interest and we take her away. Sometimes they die, sometimes they don't.
I did love that Spock's, rationale for not going to Kirk in the first place was ask you to face the death penalty too. One of us was enough. And I love that Kirk is like, this regrettable tendency you've been showing lately towards flagrant emotionalism. And Spock is like, I see no reason to insult me. I believe I've been completely logical about the whole affair. That's just fun.
I had a plan, and it was like, there's just the complete inability to recognize that there is an emotional underpinning of I like this person, I want a better life for them. Let's break all the fucking rules in a very logical way because it's a plan. But yeah, delightful.
I did love that the Telosian keeper says Captain Pike has an illusion and you have reality. May you find your way as pleasant, because it very much mirrored what he said about Vina to Pike. It was, I liked it.
Like they kept some of the lesson intact of like, maybe it's just a young man's game where it's like, that feisty nature of I don't want to live in anything fake, and then eventually you find yourself in circumstances where it's like, reality ain't so good anymore.
Yeah. But, I won't say it. I'll try to remember to bring this up. I'll try to remember to bring this up.
Make a note of it.
When we hit like the 7th movie.
Write down 7th movie, comment, like re-listen to episode, what is it, 16? Yeah. Oh, God.
I thought it was interesting that Roddenberry wrote this, but he basically has this yeoman walk in and be like, oh, I recognize the captain immediately. A mutual friend described you. Lieutenant Helen Johansson. And Shatner just like, I don't know, like the way he's like, she described? Like he looks fearful and embarrassed.
What did she say?
And then she's like, oh, she merely mentioned she knew you, sir. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Y'all been talking. I can feel it. Yeah.
Like
that's the face of a man who knows, like, oh, you know my dick size now.
This woman knows how big his dick is. She knows the length. She knows the girth. She knows about that mole on his left testicle. She knows about the birthmark on the inside of his left butt cheek. Like she knows about the lifts that he has in the boots and the rug that he has on his head. She knows. Yep. I mean, like this woman knows everything about Kurt.
She knows how he likes his pegging. We all realize at this moment. Yeah, no, I get that. I had that same moment of really, really, honey, like fun subtext.
Yeah.
I completely forgot in which context this happens. It's wild. Like, who was she referring to? Helen? Who was that again?
Helen Johansson. You mentioned her name,
and who is she? Do we know her?
No, we don't know her. She's just they have a mutual friend. Like
fair enough.
Like Mendez goes to like introduce her to Kirk, and she's like, "Oh, I know you."
Yeah, right. Oh, I've heard all about you. Yeah, no, I remember.
She knows what this man likes in bed.
I was curious if I was missing someone, because I feel like we've met a Helen with a different last name at some point, but that might just be my imagination.
It might be, or it might not.
Maybe I just like the name. But someone write in and tell me if I'm weird. Yeah.
Robert Justman convinced Roddenberry to write a 2-part episode utilizing the first pilot because they ran out of scripts in the middle of the first season and had to shut down production otherwise. Roddenberry called it The Envelope and wrote the episode in 3 or 4 days. Robert Butler claimed it was Roddenberry's entrepreneurial talent which managed to find a way using the failed pilot as a money-saving device for the show. According to James Doohan, guy that played Scotty, Roddenberry originally wanted to, and this makes perfect sense, y'all, we might have had another Star Trek movie. Roddenberry wanted to sell the failed pilot as a theatrical film, but it needed to be expanded with additional material to reach the feature length. Roddenberry planned to film the crash of the SS Columbia on Talos 4 because it didn't require Jeffrey Hunter, who was neither available or affordable to reprise his role as Captain Pike. However, plans for the feature release were soon abandoned.
Yeah, because it wasn't popular yet. Like, you have nothing to stand on.
Roddenberry was always looking to make a buck, man.
That makes sense. Like, it's still TV budget. Like why would you make a feature now? Whatever.
Yeah. By the way, this episode...
I do love the entrepreneurial talent quote where it's like, no, he was convinced, and he had to save money. Like, they ran out of scripts. Like, managing to find a way. No, they wrote a frame story. It's been done before. Mm-hmm. It's good, but it's not like, oh, he's such a special man for coming up with this shit. Like,
I mean, he had talent. He knew how to do.
Oh, sure.
Like,
it's just like, let's not buy too much into the great man in history theories. Like, there were other people contributing to why this is a good show.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just saying that, Roddenberry, for all the crap I give him and talk about him, like, a lot of the things that made him great for the show also were some of the worst things about him. Just by happenstance. Like,
yeah, that makes sense.
Just apparently a very charming person. Very good pitch, man.
That helps, yeah. You need someone like that in there, and then you need, a bunch of other people to do the detailed work.
This episode won the 1967 Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation. Combined with Part 2, is the first of 4 Star Trek episodes to win the award. The others are The City on the Edge of Forever, and 2 from Next Generation, The Inner Light, and All Good Things. Now, that's all I've got on this episode.
City on the Edge of Forever I've heard before, so I'm looking forward to that one whenever we get to it.
Don't have that long to wait.
Oh, that's
unfortunately,
because I hadn't looked into the list yet.
Unfortunately, many Star Trek fans say it's the best episode of Star Trek ever produced, so you might be going out, like, hitting the peak quite early.
That's an option, but we'll see. I'll hold out hope.
I'll tell you this. While I think it might be the best episode of the original series, it's not my favorite Star Trek episode.
Good. There's other stuff yet to be found. We'll get there.
Definitely. That's all I've got. Send us your feedback.
Yeah. Agree.
It enhances our reality when we know you have thoughts, dear listener. Star Trek UCast.
Indeed, otherwise, yeah.
At gmail.com. Star Trek UCast at gmail.com. And you can reach us on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. Wherever.
I still haven't found the YouTube. I should do that. Send me a link, damn it.
All right. Effie, thank you for watching along with me, as always.
My pleasure. Thank you for rewatching along with me again, in this case.
I mean, due diligence. Due
diligence. Yeah, you got a podcast or you don't,
And it's not like I came up with this idea to do this because I'm in desperate need to rewatch it and have a reason for it.
No. Now you have an excuse. That's
right.
Good for you.
Okay. Next week, or next episode, I should say, we're going to be talking about Shore Leave.
Yes.
So if you'd like to join along, watch Shore Leave. And
yeah, it's the next one.
Listen to us talk about it.
That's kind of the concept of the podcast. Yes.
Yeah.
Please listen to us.
Yeah.
Jabber on.
And until then, Joel Untrue, live long and prosper.
And eat a dick, people. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Roberson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.